Hello, my name is Fox, and I want to talk about the topic that has been bothering me for the month, especially as Wuthering Waves grows every patch. As someone who plays this game regularly, clearing tower each month and doing all in-game activities, the main reason why I love this game is not even the gameplay, but is how the game presents itself, different from the last 3 big projects that WuWa games did in the gacha sphere. But to understand where I'm coming from and what this video is even about, we need to dive into the beginning of the story. The game promoted itself as a post-apocalyptic setting with a grim story, lots of the grey colors, where the character had distrust with the main protagonist at the very start of the game. Typical of any gacha in the post-MiHoYo era, this game showed us a mixed cast of the female and male characters. First impression the game left that it will be a darker Genshin Impact for more mature audience. Then closed beta released. The story was so bland, WuWa Games rewrote it multiple times before releasing the game. But not just the story got changed though. Characters were also changed their appearance, making some models show more skin or make some shapes more visible. The world itself became more bright and colorful, akin to the Genshin Impact, because the devs knew that the project of that scale won't survive without making any money. Pretty sure that they wanted to be more successful than their other work, punishing Grey Raven. After many alterations to the story, characters and overall vibe of the game, they released it to the public. It was mid, as much as it can get, aside from the good battle system and very good traversal system. Story was still written poorly, lore definitions were randomly shoved into the character dialogue, and the most of the zones felt like downgraded Genshin Impact zones with a bit of the ruins around. On top of that, game struggled with the technical problems. The hype that it generated quickly began to die down. Many tourists who jumped to the ship jumped out of it without even waiting for the next patch, leaving other 2 groups people behind. What groups I'm talking about? Let me explain. Game started to show the identity crisis very early. Questions rose in the first patch. Who was the main audience for this? Gamers who see gameplay, VIPs and waifu lovers who wanted something more different than the WuWa games in the open world and with a big budget? Or shippers and the parasocial folks who wanted to be the more adult Genshin Impact? At this point, all 3 groups gathered in the same place questioning what this game will be. As patch 1.1 released, improving the game and trying to add more for each group, cracks started to show. Before continuing, we need to talk about different types of the gachas and the communities around them. Most popular gachas before 2020s were the gachas where you pull the characters that are for you, the player. Literally, you are pulling the characters that into you, since it's a product and you want to sell to the VIPs. There was exceptions, something like Grand Blue Fantasy that tried to have a balance and selling the characters that were more story driven than fanservice driven. But outside of the Asian market, that was the biggest one that you could hear around the world. Like, who heard about the Chain Chronicles or Shirenaka project? In comparison to the Azur Lane, Girls Frontline and Kantai Collection. Even the WuWa themselves played with that idea at first, when they released the Honkai Impact 3rd. At some point, Fate Grand Order cemented a phrase, Master's Love, to explain those kind of gacha. Now, let's talk about what changed after the release of the Genshin Impact. It was not just a hit, it was so big that it changed the whole space of the internet forever. People who were never interested in the anime culture at all flooded the space. Everyone started to play that game in the mass. Kids, adults, teenagers, weeps, normies, tourists, everyone blended in the same space trying this new shiny candy that was the first one that hit anime gacha under disguise of the normal game. My personal experience at the start was pretty good. As someone who is an old school VIP from 2010s, I expected this game to be more favorable to the already existing fan base around the world. Well, it was the biggest misconception I had in my life. Characters were bland, empty walking gimmicks, as you expect from the games in this genre. But this time, they had zero connection to you, to the player. It was weird, but many players had hopes that it will be fixable with more story added later. Then, 1.4 patch, shit hit the fan. When they centered their own character, the old whip guard started to complain and hit with the realization that the community is already built around normies, fujoshi, teenagers and coomers that were only interested in the Mona S without caring about anything else. What we end up with is the stories about boring gimmicks of walking cardboard personalities, interacting with each other instead of interacting with you, the player. who is actually spending money and time for those characters, since it's a gacha game. No matter how good the lore, the mysteries and the stories, it was presented in the most boring way possible, without even an option to skip it. But when some people found themselves bored out of this kind of presentation, for some, it was just the start of their absolutely parasocial relationships with those cardboards, spiraling the game deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole. And as any company listening to the feedback to the newly formed communities, Genshin Impact corrected their course to those people, leading it to the game that we know today, where main character is just the camera for other characters to interact, deal with their problems without feeling that this is the main protagonist of his own story. At some point it was so clear that the game would rather spend time showing to the players how two or more characters interact with each other, or even with some random NPC, while you left with the role of a spectator, with a little flying creature explaining every dialogue for the kids. Without diving deep into this topic, this game settled down a new type for the anime gacha games, the one that tries to sell you shipping between the characters instead of their relationships with the player. With the second game released, Honkai Star Rail, they doubled down on their idea behind selling ships. At that point, Hyverse were the biggest name in the anime sphere around the world. It shaped and minds a lot of people who started their adventure in the anime media, promoting their ideas as the golden standard of that type of media, and this is how it should be. In the end, shipping culture became the loudest representation of horror games on the internet. The people who participated in it were usual suspects, with different flags, depending on what's trendy on that point, variable pronouns and a big hate for the straight people. Well, you know who I'm talking about. Tourists and the normal people were just eating the slop at that point, without voicing their opinions much. They just didn't know better, because the game never got any meaningful quality of life for years. At some point, people became so parasocial with their ideas behind characters and their ships that they started treating real people like fictional characters, while fictional characters like real people. Toxicity went overboard. Anyone could see that there's a big chunk of the community gatekeeping the game from the other side of the gacha players, by harassing them and neglecting every other vision that didn't align with theirs. Don't believe me? Just look how they treated the only crumbs that this company gave for straight people who are interested in the romance between the characters and MC. Firefly and Sitlali were the characters who got a little bit of the romantic subtext with the mostly male MC. Those little crumbs in the sea of the washed neutrality and minimal effort interactions between the characters got hated so much that everyone who enjoyed it called incel, misogynist, harassed and cold weird. I want to remind you that the anime media for tens of years catered and built upon fanservice for the male audience. No one is denying that there were different shows, different worlds, built for different folks, as any other media that humanity produces. But we shouldn't suddenly forget that the main audience was the straight male viewer. It's just statistics. Gachas is mainly anime media. You spend your money and time to obtain the character, and for some people, they did wanted this character to give them some fan service. So imagine getting called an incel or someone who never touched a woman just because you like sexual characters, or just want some romantic content between main character and the girl. You know, it's just the pixels. Who cares, right? With this context, let's jump back to the Wuthering Waves. As the game went 1.1 and onwards, they fixed more stuff, added more quality of life, and tried to make the game, as community back called it, a better Genshin Impact. But not only gameplay-wise. The story that was bland and felt directionless started to take the shape of the type that Master Love story represents, a player-centric one, not the character-centric one. It kinda spiraled into this never-ending videos all around YouTube of Wuthering Waves doing better than Genshin, or devs listened meme. Slowly normies and tourists started to notice how Genshin was holding them by their balls, by finally comparing to the higher quality product. And thus with 2.0 massive improvements began the mass migration of the players into the Wuthering Waves. Gameplay endies were happy, whips were happy with the biggest power fantasy game that objectively one of the best looking gachas on the market. But one group left behind and they were really angry about this. But hey, they already have two big projects catering to their needs, with the third one, ZZZ, becoming more popular. Now, in the perfect world, we will have two different big companies releasing products for two different kinds of gamers that enjoy different things and everyone should be happy. Right? Nope. From what I learned spectating for many years as not native English speaker who grew up in the Slavic country, Westerners have this idea of inclusion in everything they see that is big. They want to be a part of it no matter what, and not just to decide with everyone and enjoy the product. They wanted to change to their vision, alienating core audience. As we know, the company's goals are always to make more money, so they of course bend to the idea of a wider audience. But that will result in the misery and the never-ending drama between people. But that topic is much bigger than just Wuthering Waves, so we will skip it for this video. So how this left-out audience accepted the changes to the game? Changes that helped the game to survive, of course with hysteria. But nothing wrong with that, it's a typical human behavior when a group is angry about something. But Kuro showed again and again that the game will be power fantasy, that it will release 4 times more females than the males, that the story will be centered around the main character, and it also will cater to the straight people. What was their reaction? Typical for those kind of people. Attacking, degrading the whole group into the inferior ones, a deep grudge against the devs and the people who actually have fun in this game in the current state. Critiques of the story, character interactions, fan service that they bring have almost all of the time bumps to the fact that they bring horror games as example how it should be. They do not want nor accept the fact that the different storytelling could exist in the media that is not catered to their needs. Now you ask, what is wrong with the interactions between the characters? It makes game world more alive, interesting, can create a lot of situations between the characters that will improve their cardboard personalities. Well, then you open up the profiles of those people who want it the most. And it's filled up with the anime man making out or Yuri. No, those people don't want interactions for the world building or anything else. They just want another horror type game where they could fulfill their shipping fantasies. What they do not know or just ignore, that the community already have a lot of the fun works of the characters interacting with each other, like that one artist making rom-com manga in the WuWa universe, or the WuWa 1566 series and many other stuff. Why do they ignore it? Because looking at the information in their profiles, you will understand what they really want. What if a normal person thinks the same way as them, but not our usual suspect? Well, ask yourself, why do you want a live service game waste your time with the useless dialogue between characters that does not move the story nor help the sell character for the potential client? So the world will feel more alive? Well, characters cannot grow, change or die in projects like this. When they need to sell the new characters through banners, the potential of the story cannot be realized with so many limitations. World feeling more alive? More like the biggest psyops I have seen since early 2010s. At some point I feel like the absence of the skip button in the horror games damaged the people's minds, so they're just trying to justify the time that they're wasted in life with self-deception. Let's not forget that many people started their anime media adventures past COVID, or tourists that still couldn't figure out why anime media is filled with the schoolgirls. Pretty sure hearing this they will come up with the smartest idea ever, reducing one word meaning even further than the word Nazi at that point. Maybe someday people will remember the concept of the reality escapism. Also, normality is always on the scale, so I wouldn't care much about opinions of people who call themselves normal while playing 12+ casino game with anime characters moaning in their ears. I want to remind you that 15 years ago anime fans were beaten outside or got bullied. Popularization of the anime after the COVID might be softened the reception of the media, but it didn't normalize it at all for the 5'2" Andy with kids and wife who are watching football after the work. Just don't delude yourself. But what is true, that behind such people's opinions, there could be many usual suspects, trying to appeal to the reasoning and logic, gaslighting you into the opening to the idea that maybe it's not that bad after all. You open the gates, thinking that it will please everyone, so why not? And in the end, getting Trojan horse in your city, filled with toxic shippers, misandrists and mentally ill people, while those 3.5 tourists that ask for it will leave for another big game when it will release. So how does it end? Simple, they want you out now. Those people never wanted equality, they always want to make something that does not include them theirs. It's just a simple tribalistic nature of humanity that would even work in something as stupid as video games. Now the problem is, Wuthering Waves never had its gaze closed in the first place. Everyone were blended in the one place that has vague concepts of what it could be. So even after picking the route where they want to go, they still try to appeal to the groups who hate this route that Kuro choose, feeding them the crumbs and the hope that their opinions will be heard and the game will finally change to what they want. What we left in the current state is a big chaos of the few groups: VIPs, usual suspects and the tourists. VIPs is getting attacked by the people who love their backyard adventures with the characters, or Yuri lovers who think that all males should QS for the loving polygonal characters in a straight way. Sometimes even VIPs attacking back, creating even more conflict. Tourists getting farmed with the constant drama by the content creators, where they compare WuWa with the Hoyo games, constantly fueling radicalized toxic groups that hate the game, that choose other route, while being as big as it is. Maybe from the fear that it will become the new norm. In this state, the whole community feels like one big boiling pot, and it does hurt creators that are interested in creating something for the game they love. People are in constant fight against each other, against company, farming negativity left and right. The lore videos, arts, funny videos are not getting much attention because each of those creators could see a different vision of what they want this game to be, which potentially could lead to the alienation of the other group who doesn't agree with them, but still could be interested in their content. And no, if the game like Blue Archive have thriving and creative community, while being a game literally catered to the weirdest whips, whose gatekeeping by the way really hard, that means the problem is not the absence of men, Yuri baiting, or character interactions. The problem is an inner peace. What this community and the Wuthering Waves as whole really need is accepting the game as what it is and roll with it. Incel Gunnar Stragat game? Yeah, that's an actual word I saw on Twitter. Yes, it is. Play it or leave. Stop gaslighting yourself that it will become something else. But my game is normal. No, it's not, man. How many girls Rover need to pick up for you to understand that this is a power fantasy? Do you really need sex scenes to affirm that, or what? But the other game! Go play that other game! And when all bad actors leave, we will get a peace and could start building up from what is left, all in harmony, with one goal in mind, to make a game better for the audience that sticked. Without the white noise, buzz and constant comparison to the Hoyo, it will be easier to categorize critiques and ask for more of what we love in this game. Be it more character interactions in the future events, more dates with the characters, more story of the world, or anything else. It will be easier to see all the content people are creating, to support them, to motivate them to create more, creating a more healthy community overall. All good on paper, but will Koro games be ready to lose part of the community that they hold on hook, but don't pull out or let it go, getting money from each side? I really doubt. A resolution of this identity crisis will define the future of the game, as more games getting released in the near future, and tourists will jump on the hype train, leaving only people who care behind. Which side you're on is up to you. The only thing that you need to know that neutrality is always be used as a null voice. This video is made by internet dweller for the internet dwellers. We still remember how the internet was before the COVID incident happened. If you think that this doesn't matter at all, you're just a dude who plays games. Think for 1 second, why you, a normal lad, playing a Chinese anime gacha game in the year of 2020s instead of the Western games that shall be on paper cater more to your needs, with more serious plotlines, more adult cast of characters and no cringy fanservice. Yeah, maybe because someone loud and insignificant demanded games to appeal to them. Well, now you live in the world of body type 1 and 2, Yasuke in Assassin's Creed, powerful girl characters that somehow feels like a man with tits, absence of the sexual characters and many more fun stuff that gamers don't like now. Well folks, this is consequences of your own actions. You were silent and didn't care much. Well, now you get what you deserve. I, personally, is a VIP to my very core, so I never cared much about the Western games and only played Japanese titles or Chinese gachas. But now I see those roaches already crawl to the space that I can call my home, and they already try to change it, and I'm not gonna be silent about it, even if I will be the one who's voicing my opinion to the void. Gatekeep what you love. You are not a shareholder to care about profits of the company and how much they grow by accepting wider audience. VIP from the past, signing out.